Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into Clayton M. Christensen's 1997 business classic to uncover how industry disruption actually works. We're going to do a comprehensive book summary review of The Innovator's Dilemma, which is basically the text that completely revolutionized how we think about progress, failure, and, staying ahead of the curve. If you've ever sat there and wondered why massive, incredibly successful companies just suddenly collapse when new technology hits the scene, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty fascinating secret. Out of all the business books out there, and there are thousands, this was the one entrepreneurship book that Steve Jobs credited with deeply influencing him as he built the world's most valuable company. According to his 2011 biography, there really weren't many books Jobs explicitly referenced like this, which makes this one incredibly special. You kind of have to ask yourself, right? What exactly did the founder of Apple see in these pages?
Here is our quick roadmap for mastering the mechanics of disruption today. We've got 1. The Steve Jobs secret. 2. Sustaining versus disruptive technology. 3. Why good companies fail. And finally, 4. Solving the innovator's dilemma.
Let's jump into Section 1, The Steve Jobs Secret, Grasping the Core Book.
Moving right along to Section 2, Sustaining versus disruptive technology. This is our first real lesson. So the innovator's dilemma highlights a genuinely fascinating structural problem. Market leaders are actually set up to fail as technologies change. We usually just assume that giant companies fail because their executives get complacent, lazy, or maybe they just stop paying attention. But the innovator's dilemma shows us that market leaders are actually structurally built to fail as industries evolve. They fail precisely because they are well-managed, highly efficient, and absolutely loaded with resources. Crazy, right?
The absolutely crucial point here is understanding the clear distinction between sustaining technologies, where established businesses really shine, and disruptive technologies that spark entirely new industries. Sustaining technologies are all about making a good thing, better. Think about making a battery last 10% longer, or making a smartphone screen just a little bit brighter. Incumbents are amazing at this because they have the cash and the efficiency to deliver that incremental progress at scale to their current customers. But disruptive technologies, those solve problems in entirely new ways for completely new groups of people. They literally change the whole landscape overnight.
This table brilliantly illustrates the trap. Think about it. Why on earth would a massive company like IBM divert resources away from their best-selling, highly profitable 14-inch hard disks to focus on a tiny 1.5-inch format that, at the time anyway, nobody was really asking for? It just didn't make sense to them. And this is exactly where incumbents lack the imagination and the swiftness required for true disruption.
Which brings us to Section 3, Why Good Companies Fail. Lesson 2. The source material explains that a business's culture and its actual capabilities rely on 3 really rigid factors: resources, processes, and values. Think of this whole thing as the operating system of a company. Resources, that's the easy part. It's the cash, the equipment, the people you hire or fire. Processes are the habits, the formal and informal ways things actually get done on the floor. And values are the strict criteria by which managers and employees make their decisions every single day.
So big companies have a ton of cash, sure, but their processes and values become so hardened over time that they simply cannot pivot. When disruptive tech first appears, it usually creates a super low-margin niche market. Startups absolutely love this space, but for a giant incumbent, their fixed set of values dictates that they shouldn't waste their time on tiny, low-profit margins. Their hardened processes physically prevent them from moving fast enough to capture it anyway. So short-term change becomes practically impossible for them. Which naturally leads us to ask, how could a massive giant like Kodak fail to give digital cameras the attention they deserved? We all know the story. Kodak was the undisputed king of photography. They had all the resources in the world, so why on earth did they have such a spectacularly tough time transitioning when digital cameras, which were truly disruptive technology, arrived on the scene? Well, Kodak's rigid values and processes simply did not match the new market distribution, proving that you literally cannot manage your way out of a structural mismatch. Their internal values were entirely built around the massive, high margins of selling physical film. When digital came along, it fundamentally didn't fit their criteria for what made a good business decision. So even with brilliant executives at the helm, the greatest management in the world won't help you if your fundamental corporate values completely clash with the new reality.
All right, Section 4, Solving the Innovator's Dilemma. This is Lesson 3.
Christensen points out a really hard truth here. Big businesses have got to accept their limitations, instead of trying to force new markets to grow fast from within. You just cannot run a highly optimized, process-heavy, sustaining business and a chaotic, low-margin, disruptive startup under the exact same roof. It doesn't work. The corporate antibodies of the main business will almost always attack and kill off the disruptive threat to protect the current profits. So, total acceptance of this limitation is your absolutely critical first step.
So here is Christensen's concrete solution. Use your abundant resources to fund an independent subsidiary and just let them do their own thing. This is the exact blueprint. If your processes and values are wrong for the new market, but you have the resources, use those resources. Fund an entirely separate company. Give them the cash and the people, but critically, and I mean this is the most important part, sever them from the mothership's rules. Let this new subsidiary build completely new processes and values that perfectly match that chaotic, emerging market.
IBM actually deployed this exact bold move by letting an independent team build the personal computer, and they reaped massive profits even before they knew exactly what the market needed. Back when PCs weren't really a mainstream thing yet, IBM didn't try to force their massive mainframe division to build them. Instead, they took a huge leap. They deployed cash and people to an independent subsidiary. By the time the PC market totally exploded, that subsidiary had already developed the perfect processes and values to dominate it. IBM secured long-term leadership in a space that was entirely outside its original core focus. It's brilliant.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a business leader and ask yourself how your own resources, processes, and values would hold up to disruption. Would your heart and systems prevent you from seeing the next big thing? Or would you have the foresight to accept your limitations, fund the future, and let it grow independently? Understanding the innovator's dilemma completely changes how you view progress. So keep this framework in your back pocket, because the next wave of disruption, it's always just around the corner. Catch you next time.